Let's talk about America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, who have had a very eventful last 48 hours.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Indeed. So the Cowboys lost Monday night to the Arizona Cardinals 27-17 in a game that it just feels like I was talking to somebody yesterday and watching that game. It's like you feel like over and over, like, okay, Dallas is going to figure out, okay, now's going to be the time when Dallas is off. No, it's going to be now. Okay, they blocked a punt. Now this will give the offense some juice. Man, it just never happened. Even Brandon Aubrey's missing 68 yarders. What a bum. What a terrible kicker. Right? He had an opportunity to respond to Little, the kicker for the Jags, who hit the longest field goal ever. Aubrey was able to hit. No question he'll get an opportunity in the future, and I imagine he'll make that one. Dallas, though, the next day, after Jerry Jones had teased to Stephen A. Smith on his SiriusXM show and had teased to all of America by default, hey, we've made a trade and we might be making another. Well, it turns out those trades were Logan Wilson from the Cincinnati Bengals. Logan Wilson's a good player, but you're getting the linebacker from the only defense that is worse than yours. I don't think that's going to be a life changer. The ones that Cowboys fans hope is life changer, we can go and put up the trade right here with the New York Jets. Got Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams, who's one of the best defensive tackles in all of football, and he gave up Mozzie Smith, who was a total bust from the draft a few years ago, and then they gave up a 2027 first and a 2026 second-round pick to the New York Jets, and that's the trade. So I'll talk about kind of the Jets aspect of this a little bit later in the Sauce Gardner stuff, and I'll talk about with Josh Tariff in about 35, 40 minutes. The thing for Dallas that is so fascinating, and you don't see this very often in NFL trades, you see it all the time in NBA trades, is the 2027 first rounder that they gave up to the Jets. The way that the trade specifics are laid out, the Adam Schefter laid out yesterday, is that New York will get whatever is the better of the Cowboys or formerly two first-round picks in 2027, obviously one of which they got in the Micah Parsons trade from the Green Bay Packers. So in other words, this is a situation where if the Cowboys remain awful, we imagine the Cowboys will finish with a worse season than Green Bay. I know the Packers lost the Panthers, but come on. Imagine Dallas will be worse. Jets get that pick in 2020, or I should say next year. I think Cowboys will be worse than the Packers next year. Hard to project. The Jets will get that pick in 2027. So Dallas is awful. They win 7 games. Hey, great pick for the Jets to go along with their pick. This is an insane trade by the Dallas Cowboys. I'll defend Logan Wilson. You gave up peanuts to get him. Like, I'm not against that. All right, any addition, any half-decent linebacker can't hurt. That's one of the weaknesses of your defense is linebacker. You got a lot of weaknesses. That's one of them. Quinnen Williams makes no sense for a number of reasons. It has nothing to do with Quinnen Williams, the player. He's excellent. He's 28 years old. He's an all-pro caliber player. That's not a bad addition. He was one of the few bright spots of the New York Jets football team for the last few years. He's a great player. Here's the problem, though. There's a few. Number one, go and put up the Micah Parsons trade from a couple of months ago. So Packers got Micah. Cowboys got Kenny Clark from Green Bay, 2 first-rounders, 2026, 2027. Go and put up the Jets trade that they made yesterday. So Dallas, after yesterday, going into yesterday, having multiple, their own second-round picks and 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years. Now they're out of their own second-round pick, which, who knows, their 3, 5, and 1 could be a decent pick. Could be like the 39th, 40th, 41st pick. That's a great pick in the draft. That's gone now to the Jets. And one of the assets you got for Micah Parsons is gone. Now you're left with 3, which 3 first-round picks next 2 years. Not bad. It's not as good as 4. And it's not so much as the player that they traded for, so much as it is the position that they traded for. Defensive tackle. Guys, you just paid Osa Odigizua $20 million plus. You're paid Kenny Clark somewhere around that in that same ballpark, and now you're training for Quinnen Williams, who's making similar amounts of money. In other words, after the season's over, you have to get rid of one of them. Odigizua is probably the odd man out, is my guess, because Jerry's not going to trade for Kenny Clark and for Quinnen Williams in the same offseason or during the season and let one of them go. So defensive tackle is a position you've already invested in. Now you got no salary cap to begin with. Like, you know what's funny? You know what I love about this whole situation? Is the money that they're paying Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams is about the amount of money they could have just paid for Micah Parsons. Isn't that some? And by the way, they gave up a first-round pick. Like, it makes no sense. But frankly, nothing Jerry does makes sense. And so that sort of ties into that Monday night loss to the Arizona Cardinals, is that, listen, we know this defense is awful. This was the first game where the offense was as bad as the defense. They struggled last week against Denver, but they moved the football. They got in the red zone. They just couldn't finish drives. What I saw the other night against the Cardinals has been the weakness of the Cowboys offense all year long. Is the offensive line, which, for weeks I've talked about, they're bottom 5 in the NFL in terms of pass protection. That showed itself. All right, you got Walter Nolan stepping up and making plays, first game of his career. The Cowboys offensive line got worked. It's been getting worked this season. Whether they're healthy, whether they're missing guys, they're not good, despite the fact that Jerry has invested in that unit. You have a situation where if the Cowboys defense or the Cowboys offense is not on their A game, they're playing behind the 8 ball, down double digits, and now they're just having to come back the rest of the way. Now Dak Prescott's having to throw 45 plus times potentially. They can't establish the run the way that Brian Schottenheimer wants to, and the way that they've had success running the football with Javonte Williams. And the fact of the matter is this: what you saw in this trade yesterday, again, Logan Wilson, shrug, okay. It doesn't hurt you, didn't help you. You gave up a late pick. Doesn't really matter. Trading for Quinnen Williams when you were already paying a lot of money for that position for 2 guys. Now you're paying for 3 guys at that position. And by the way, do we think Quinnen Williams along with Logan Wilson are going to save Dallas the season this year? Do we think a Cowboys team that doesn't look anywhere close to Super Bowl contention over the next few seasons, that those picks would not matter tremendously for them? That cannot put them in position to, hey, maybe we can move off of some of these bad contracts or some of these lofty contracts. You get young guys in. That's how you build a Super Bowl contender. Unless you're the 2021 Rams, you just pay for everybody. But you put yourself in a spot where, okay, we bring in some rookies, bring in some young guys. Hopefully we can develop them. And now we got a core for the next half decade, hopefully. That's what Washington's have a down year this year, but Washington's done well in the draft. Detroit has crushed the draft. They can pay Jared Goff, and they can pay Amon-Ra St. Brown and Aiden Hutchinson and Penei Sewell. But because they aced the draft, because they brought in Jahmyr Gibbs, because they brought in some solid linebackers, done well in the back end of their defense as far as the safety position is concerned, now they're good. That's what elevates a good team into an excellent team, into a Super Bowl contender. And considering how many draft picks the Cowboys have bombed on over the next couple of the last few years, I've talked about that in this show. Look at the Cowboys 22, 23, 24, and 25 draft. They're not good. 2023 is, I guess, fine, or 22 is okay. 3, 4, and 5 are terrible. None of those guys have hit. And so I saw this yesterday. I'm thinking, what are they thinking? Like, if you're going to make a move for a big star, get a corner or something. I don't know. Get a add to your offensive line like the Chargers went and get Trevor Penning. Do something like that. And so I don't know what Jerry's trying to accomplish through this. It's not that Quinnen Williams is not an excellent player. He's fantastic. But now you just lost one of your assets you got for Micah. You lost another one of your assets that could be excellent because it's likely to be a high second-round pick next year, unless you turn your season around crazily. I mean, I don't think any of us think that's going to happen. And now the Jets, this and the Sauce Gardner trade, which we'll talk about a little bit, are sitting pretty. They feel great about where they're at today. This trade made no sense by the Dallas Cowboys. I listen, few things Jerry Jones does make sense, but maybe, just maybe, it comes back. Jerry sort of alluded to this the other day where he's like, I'm more focused on my $100 million gas investment than I am fixing the Cowboys defense. Maybe this goes back to something, and we've saved it in the archives here on Carving It Up because I feel like it's going to be relevant as time goes on. Remember what Jerry Jones said during training camp when he's talking about, hey, when the Cowboys, what's his business model? The Cowboys aren't talked about. Got to talk about him. Even if there's nothing going on, got to talk about him.
I do believe if we're not being looked at, then I'll do my part to get us looked at. The Cowboys are a soap opera 365.
The training will begin
When it gets
momentarily.
I'll start.
Please take your seats.
So it's wonderful to have the great athletes, have the great players. But there's something more there. There's sizzle, there's emotion. And if you will, there's controversy. That controversy is good stuff in terms of keeping and having people's attention.
I mean, that's Jerry told you right there. Like, that's his business model. It's not about winning games. It's about staying in the news, staying relevant. Even if you're clearly not a Super Bowl contender, in all likelihood not going to be a playoff team in a stacked NFC, now you just put yourself in a spot where, best case, after the season, you're going to have to get rid of one of these defensive tackles that's making upwards of $20 million. Osa Odighizuwa, Kenny Clark, and now Quinnen Williams. By the way, isn't it funny? Again, the money Jerry could have spent on Micah Parsons is basically what he spent on Kenny Clark and on Quinnen Williams. And if you want to add Odighizuwa's contract, it's upwards of the money they would have paid for Micah Parsons, who's, one of the 5 best players at his position. Maybe one of the 3 best. So I think Dallas is out of their minds for making this move. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.